this.
And we try to remind in these emails customers that, hey, a normal company doesn't communicate through this, but we're different. We're not normal, and we want to be transparent about that. Just literally reminding them of that. They appreciate that.
Welcome to Gracecast, a show where the top tactics for selling direct to consumer are expanded to get results for perishable food suppliers. If you're in the fresh and frozen categories and you're looking for the latest insights on e-commerce, marketing, and business, subscribe and stay tuned. Hey there, and welcome back to Gracecast. My name is Brooks Hitsfield, and as always, I'm joined with my brother and business compadre, Blaine Hitsfield.
Always excited to be on.
We're today talking about a topic that a lot of us don't want to talk about. Sometimes this is something we don't even want to address, but it's how to navigate through a price increase and retain as many customers as possible through that. So here we're talking about specifically large price increases, maybe on an entire product category where it's something where your customers are definitely going to notice it. So what we're going to do is talk about some of the lessons that we've learned navigating through scenarios like this, and just some of the lessons that have helped us retain as many customers as possible as we've communicated and walked them through this process.
Yeah, so this is like a 3-step formula, Brooks, that we've used time and time again. So we've used it many times. It's always worked well for us. We've always been happy with the results. But I want to quickly address the fact that this, as you mentioned, this is for a larger price increase where it's noticeable. In an ideal world, Brooks, our costs go up really slow, and we just, over time, we just make small price adjustments, and it doesn't need to be any big announcement. It's just people know over time prices go up. But what happens is sometimes as our costs go up, ignorance is bliss, and we just kind of want to ignore it, think our costs will go back down. Before you know it, over a year or two, you look at your costs and it's like, wow, I've got to make a big adjustment. So that would be a time to use this formula. Ideally, though, you're watching your cost as it goes up and you're incrementally increasing your cost.
Yeah.
Another time, Brooks, that we're using this is a time of major inflation, like very relevant to this time right now. And Brooks, we're in a place right now where almost all of our category prices need to go up.
Yep.
Almost on a lot of our different SKUs. So definitely going to be noticeable. We're going to be using this formula here in the next couple months.
Absolutely. I think this is why we wanted to record this episode, because it's really timely. I'm watching inside of a lot of different Facebook groups where people are talking about how to walk their customers through this, because you're right. Most of the major input categories for running a farm business, a direct marketing business, and some of the overheads too, if you're looking at needing to make some expansion investments this year, those are more costly than ever before. So this is something a lot of people are having to look at. You're right. In an ideal world, you keep a close eye on your pricing, monitor this very, very close, and you want to try to avoid having to even address this, but there's sometimes it just doesn't turn out that way.
Yeah, exactly. And this is something, Brooks, that it's super important. I mean, before you know it, you can lose half your margin very, very quickly if you're not watching this. So it's super important to keep up on this.
Yep. And it's something to where I think, especially those of us who are in the farm to fork world, it's really common for us to want to resist the, staying on top of this, and especially having to do a large price increase when you've noticed that your margins are way out of line, because we're in a very relational business where you have a close relationship with your customers.
There's transparency and trust.
Yes, absolutely. So this is something where you know it can have an impact on them. And a lot of people just take the route of burying their head in the sand and not keeping a close eye on this instead. So
there's also the other school of thought where, and many people say this, you don't need to communicate to your customer, just make the price increase. And because of that transparency and trust, Brooks, that's why when we're talking about a substantial price increase, beyond 10%, say, we think we're of the belief and pretty strong about this needs to be communicated, and communicated well. That's what we're talking about today.
Very, very important point. You'll hear people say a lot that, hey, grocery stores, they don't communicate their price increases, which is true, but also, how much trust do your customers have, and how close of a relationship do they have with their local grocery store or supermarket, right? Yep. Not very much, but they have a relationship and trust with you, which is why this is a critical point to not infringe on that trust and break that trust, because it's really easy to do.
Yep, exactly.
So to walk through the 3 tips, we'll just go ahead and get into these. Number one, Blaine, you've already kind of touched on it, but first you need to decide whether or not it's even worth making the announcement to your customers. A lot of things we think about through that is, hey, is this going to be category wide, which we've already addressed. This is kind of what we're talking about. Also, another area that I might consider making an announcement is when you're making a substantial price increase on a very popular item.
Yeah, staple products.
Yes. So you're talking ground beef, bacon, or something like that. So first thing you need to do is decide, okay, is this going to make enough of impact or enough customers going to notice and feel this that it's worth addressing and giving them a reason for why we're having to make this adjustment.
Yeah.
Once you've made that decision that an announcement is necessary, number one, what we do is we try to segment the announcement as much as possible, where we're basically notifying the customer group that is going to notice the impact of that pricing group, and give them a reason into why that's happening. We're going to give some other tips on how to do that and communicate through that. But you don't want to, the last thing you want to do is if you're having to make a substantial price increase on maybe it's more of a unique category that you offer, and you only have, maybe 20 to 30% of your customers who even buy that product, but the ones they buy it religiously, so they're going to notice the difference. You don't necessarily want to have to make that announcement to your entire email list and your entire customer base. There's no reason for someone who's not interested in that product to really even get that type of announcement.
I think it was 3 years ago, lamb was an example of a product that we weren't watching very close when it comes to our margins. And like one day I sat down and I did a margin analysis. I'm like, wow, we need to either eliminate this product or increase the prices by almost, I think it was close to 50% price increase.
Yep.
And that was an example of not everyone purchased lamb. Matter of fact, it was a minority, a very minority of our customers that purchased lamb. So there's where we used drip to segment our list. Said, hey, show us all buyers in the last, I think, 6 or 12 months that purchased lamb, and that announcement went out to them. So step one is segment.
And the reason why this is so important is because you do want to limit how often you have to make these announcements. So again, staying on top of your pricing is critical to limit these. But you are going to have to make them over time. And just every single time a customer gets that email that, hey, prices are going up, it starts to become a little bit of a mental note that they make in their mind with doing business with you. And they're going to be on the lookout then, a closer lookout on the website for things that might be changing and increasing in price over time. So ideally, you want to limit and segment that list as much as possible. So you're correct. We basically, with GraceCart, for any of you who are utilizing the GraceCart platform, we have an integration with an email marketing platform called Drip. So that is a very close integration where all of our GraceCart data is basically dumping into that platform, so it knows what products customers have purchased. So we just go ahead and do a little search query that says, hey, show me all the customers that have purchased lamb in the last 6 months or the last year. That's going to be most likely the people who are most interested and most are the people we want to maintain that trust with by letting them know what's going on.
Yep, exactly. Yep, and Brooks, inevitably, I would say every category that of our products within every year or at least every 2 years, there's always some form of a major cost disruption that basically merits one of these price increase communications. So it's routine. It happens. So this is what we're talking about today.
Yep. So the more you segment, the less often the same customer is going to hear that announcement over and over.
Cool. So segment is number one. Only announce to the people that need to know.
Yep. So tip number 2, Blaine, you can probably speak to this most, but number 2 is just to offer transparency and rationale into what's going on, to just be honest with your customers into what are the market factors, the influences that is causing you to have to make such a substantial change, even if that the reason is a little uncomfortable to have to communicate, like, oh, we didn't run analysis close enough on this, and we didn't realize that our pricing model was so far off to where it needs to be.
Yeah, and then that was the case of with our lamb because we were kind of new to the business, new to that product category, and so you don't want to be saying that all the time. That oops, I figured my cost wrong again. But in that case, we did, and that wasn't a common reason for a price increase, but for lamb it was. But obviously, with this year, we're going to be communicating that our non-GMO grain prices have gone up, our shipping and packaging costs have gone up substantially, our processing costs have gone up. And cattle prices have gone up. I mean, this is affecting kind of all of our categories this year. So I'm in the middle of writing an email that's going to go out in a couple weeks, just offering transparency of what's happened. But it's also important to present this in the correct narrative. We're going to be probably doing about a 10% price increase, Brooks. But I've been doing some research. I noticed that Kroger has increased their beef prices this year by 14% alone. So I'm going to put that in the email to kind of put in a context that, hey, this is happening all over. And it's just not us that's being affected by it. And, we're just building as much of a positive narrative and offering that transparency as to why. And I'm also going to mention that, we've absorbed most of these cost increases all year without touching our prices.
Yep.
So that's just part of that, being transparent.
And that was something very similar to how we communicated that lamb price increase years ago. So yes, correct, pricing got out of line, but we're not sending an email that's like, oh, hey, we don't know what we're doing and we messed up here. Yeah. We basically just detailed exactly what substantial cost increases we've had over the years, because that was really more of the problem in that scenario. It's just we were getting cost was going up over time, and it was lamb's just a lower portion of our overall sales, so we don't pay as watch that as close as some of the other categories, and we just didn't maintain staying on top of maintaining our those slow adjustments over time. So it basically just added up, and that's what we were communicating to our customers. Pricing has increased, or our costs have increased, and our prices have remained steady through that period, which is causing this, the need for this adjustment here.
Another tip here, as we're communicating, being transparent with our customer, and this is generally an email conversation that we're having with our customers, but this is a great time to remind your customers within the last year or two some of the new things that you're doing. So I know the last time we communicated a price increase, reminded our customers, hey, we're now offering home delivery at a very affordable cost.
Yep.
If you brainstorm that, you can come up with a lot of things that you've improved in that period.
Because you're always innovating, you're adding new things, right? If you're trying to stay relevant. So those are things that ideally benefit your customers. So you want to make sure that you remind them of that. Even if of course, they're obvious things, but it's easy for people to forget in the moment, and you want to use that to kind of counteract the announcement that you're adding here.
And there's a lot of strategy here, Brooks. When we do, say, a 10% price increase, we look at the individual SKUs, products that people really just kind of want to have. I use the example of bulk ground beef. That's a product it's a staple. Now, beef patties, that's more of a want to have convenience item. So people are going to be far more sensitive to a price increase on bulk ground beef than they are patties. So when we do a 10% price increase, we may increase the price of patties by 15% and say ground beef by maybe 7 or 8%. So we're always weighting that differently. And that's something we remind our customers that, hey, on staple items, we have minimized the price increase. Or maybe the price increase only has to apply to 30% of the SKUs in that category. We'll remind our customer we're limiting this to 30% of the SKUs.
Yeah, which is just a smart way to go about it, because your more price sensitive customers are probably going to be the ones who are most often buying those type of staples. So,
and a lot of times we never increase the price at the same time on our value bundles. So, best of beef box, we'll go ahead and reflect the retail value, the new retail value of that box, and now the savings looks even better. But we won't increase the cost of maybe the bulk bundles at the exact same time. Maybe 6 months down the road, when we kind of readjust that bundle, that's an opportunity for us to actually change the price.
So we got one more tip. Hopefully this has been helpful so far. If you're still listening, you're going to want to listen to the end, because we're going to share with you really it's a resource guide that we call the price increase formula, where actually I think we share that entire email copy that we had on that lamb price announcement. So if you guys want to see what does the actual wording and email copy look like, that's something you're going to have as a resource to download here at the end of this episode. So tip number 3 is to provide a grace period. And I think this is one of the most important parts to this. But after you're making this announcement, which again, for your customers, it's, no one wants to hear about a price increase though. But what are those things that you can add into the same email announcement that is positive? We already talked about that in the copy, reminding people of some of the new things that you're doing, but offering a grace period. When we talk about a grace period, we're saying, hey, pricing is going up, but we're going to maintain it until this date. So we're going to leave it the same.
Usually we communicate as a price freeze, but so these are things we've absorbed all year.
Yep.
And so prices are going up, but we are issuing a 30-day, or I know we've done as much of a 60-day price freeze for the next 60 days. Prices will freeze.
So that gives your customers an opportunity then to get the product in at the same price and stock up. And
the majority of the time, when we make this price increase email and we extend this grace period, we see a big boost in sales. We just do, because people are stocking up with the price freeze.
And this is a strategy that, retailers take all the time. Not that this is necessarily a sales strategy that we're putting in play here, but clear out sales are very popular. How many times have your local furniture store had their going out of business sale, right? It's there's psychology that plays into it.
This drives urgency here. And it's just it's a positive byproduct for everybody involved in the price increase. And it's fun. It's rewarding to see that happen.
Your customers appreciate this opportunity, so it's something that adding to this announcement goes a long way. Again, and
it should be a trust building exercise, or opportunity.
Yes, this is instead of having something here where you lose trust with your customers, we're trying our best to pivot that and either maintain or strengthen that trust. And again, maintain as many customers as possible through something like this.
And we try to remind in these emails customers that, hey, a normal company doesn't communicate through this, but we're different. We're not normal, and we want to be transparent about that. Just literally reminding them of that. They appreciate that.
Hopefully this episode has been helpful. If you guys want to get that resource, the price increase formula, I think is what we call it, but it has the entire email copy. It was a substantial email that we put through, but it employed all three of these tips that we just went through, so you can see exactly what did that messaging look like. And this was not a campaign, but an announcement that was very well received from our customers, regardless of it being a very substantial price increase. And I think that was our best sales month for lamb in a long time leading up to that time period. So it'll be at the bottom of the blog post, wherever this is posted. So you'll make sure you fall back to the website and download and get your copy today.